Mm.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll wait a couple of seconds before we start. Hello, everyone joining.
Hello, everybody. It's so odd here because
Um,
we moved into the webinar program from Zoom, from the standard kind of Zoom technology, and we don't know who's there anymore.
well, I know.
Mm. Oh, there we go. I found
um,
it. I see Chris, see Dom, Don, oh, Jen. Talked to you recently. Rodney, welcome. Stephanie, saw you at Fancy. Steve Beckman, we were emailing this morning. Steve Crendall, welcome. Carolyn,
okay,
welcome.
welcome. Yeah. All right, I'll stop sharing our screen and officially welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Masterclass Get the Core Right with Luke Abbott, who is the CEO and founder at Vdriven. And he will teach us today how to build a foundation for profitable growth. My name is Alexandra. I'm a chief of staff at Vdriven. And for those of you who don't know us yet, at Vdriven, we help early and mid-stage CPG brands grow and scale in retail through our suite of services, including sales and brand management, CPG accounting, and deduction management. This webinar is a part of our masterclass series where we invite industry experts to share their knowledge and experience with our community of brands. Today, we will go for about 1 hour. Luke will give his presentation, and then at the end, we'll have space for questions, Q&As. So feel free to drop your questions into either the Q&A box or also to the chat box, and we'll make sure that we'll ask these questions and Luke do his best to answer them. You'll also have a replay after the session that will be sent to your mail addresses. And I think that's all to get started. So look, I'm going to give you space. You can share your screen.
Awesome. Thank you,
Let's
Sasha.
get going.
Thank you for putting this together today, including helping build the deck. And let me share my screen and maximize this. 1 second. Okay, and minimizing that. Okay, fantastic. Well, welcome everybody. Truly grateful that you were here today. If you've attended before, you know that I tend to be efficient with time. My goal is to be done with this presentation in about 25 minutes. You're welcome to send questions to the chat box, as Sasha said, as I'm speaking, or there'll be plenty of space when I'm done to go deeper as well. I see this kind of getting the core right and building the foundation for profitable growth as being um, maybe the first of a whole series of presentations I'd like to do. As I was building out the deck today, or over the last week, excuse me, I just realized that there were so many areas I wanted to go deeper into. So today is kind of like an overview of this idea of we call the core at Vdriven, and it will kind of touch on the surface and ideally give you some nuggets that you can apply right away. And then Sasha and I will continue to plan more of these where we can dig deeper into each section of the core. So most of you know me. If you haven't met me before, I come from originally the food distribution space from the time I was just turning in my early 20s. Ended up buying the company Monterey Provision and then scaling it into a national food distributor. And I sold it to KeHE, where I worked for a couple of years, and particularly in the fresh division over there. And I left KeHE, went to Jimbo's, where I was president. Jimbo, I consider him the father of natural in America. Many people don't know this, but he founded INFRA, which is the Independent Natural Food Retailer Association, which is hundreds and hundreds of stores that have banded together to have a buying contract. So I was really honored to be at Jimbo's and support his cause. And then started Vdriven back in 2018, toward the end of the year. And the company has grown tremendously from when it was just me, oftentimes working from 5 a.m. to midnight every day, helping to support brands. And today we have 45 team members, work with over 60 brands and just so many capacities. And I was at breakfast with one of our community members this morning, and and ask me like, why I do this. And it's just like, I love what I do. I would never even consider selling my company. I don't care. I don't care. It's really, this is what I would do if I was retired. I love what I get to do. I love this community and love being able to share with you things that I've learned and that I learned from you as well. Also, just a couple more recent things. Sasha and I were invited to teach at the University of San Diego for a couple of semesters as teaching supply chain, and it was fun. We taught it all around the food supply chain, and helped me think about it deeper and helped inspire these kids to want to change the world. So that was a fun experience. And then most recently, Sasha really helped a lot getting the Reconnected podcast off the ground, where we're meeting with various members of the community. So far, it's been mainly retailers who are just sharing their story, their struggles, about their mentors, and also talking about how we improve our food supply chain. So hoping that you will join me and listen to these amazing conversations and we're having with amazing members of our supply chain. So with that, let's dig into the core. So this model, I created this probably in 2019, and I think there's many other models I've seen that are similar, but this is the one we use and seem to just speak to kind of emerging and mid-sized brands. And I'll take you through each one of the steps quickly, and then I will make it real for you by digging into each one. First, in a financial statement, then we'll look at some case studies, and then we'll dig into each one of these a little bit, or most of these a little bit deeper. So on the core, right product at the right time. So the core concept of the core is if I get the things in the core done right, I don't have to spend as much money, inefficient money in kind of the outer circle. So if I have the right product at the right time, that helps so much. I've been involved with so many companies where we were like a year early and it was so much work and so much money. And then like a year later, like all of a sudden a switch turns on and it is the right product at the right time. And you're not forcing things to happen. People are looking for you. When we can achieve that with a product, that's a really big win. COGS is one of the most important things, and I'll go into some detail on this today. I feel like brands do not spend enough time, especially in the early to maybe early mid stage, on really optimizing COGS. A lot of it's due to, hey, we're really focused on sales, but it's like, hey, if every penny that I'm spending in COGS is costing me, a penny of money that I could be spending in other areas of the company. Correct retails, that often relates to COGS, right? My COGS is too high and I need to earn a certain margin, then I can't hit my correct retail. But figuring out what that correct retail is can be difficult. And today I will give you a case study of how to do that. Production manufacturing, having that dialed in, branding and packaging certainly so important. We work with so many D2C companies who are selling online only, and their packaging looks good on someone's shelf at home, but when someone sees it at a retail store, they can't connect with it, and you have 3 seconds. So that's always very difficult. So that's the core, and if we don't get the core right, then we have to spend more like money on marketing levers. I had to create excitement. I had to hire a PR agency. I had to spend more on promotions. I can't negotiate out of placement fees or slotting fees. I have to pay everything, pay to play all the way through, because I'm basically saying I believe in it. No one else, no one else does at this point, but I'm going to pay to make it happen. So let's dig in a little bit. So the core is about cost efficient velocity. Then that could be dollar velocity or unit velocity. So this quote here that I wrote the other day is minimizing spend throughout my company per retail unit sold. So my goal is to have the fewest number of pennies per unit sold versus a lot of extra pennies, but I'm not following the core per unit sold. And another fun meme approach here is this idea of leverage, right? The further out we are on here, the more leverage we have. And I look at using the core as like giving us maximum leverage in the marketplace. And when we're not aligned with every step of the core, then we're going to be moved over here. And I think exert so much more pressure to create that balance, right? So it's kind of a choice. Like I would definitely much rather spend the money and the time to do the core right than to have to raise and spend so much money to move things forward otherwise. And one more concept before we move on is the core often requires more investment. And here, this table or this graph in the bottom left-hand side of the screen, it's dollars, but it could be time too, right? Like if I spend the time and the money up front, so I'm really spending this case that the example is 300,000 versus 100,000 of investment. that costs me more at the beginning. But I check those boxes in the core right, then theoretically over time, I'm going to be generating more cash than I would otherwise, based on what I've seen and what I truly believe. So let's take a look at the tale of two CPG companies. So one on the left is Rockstar Company. They are core aligned. They're happy. And then we have the other one, and I love this. This is my saying is we burn our cash in a dumpster company, which is not core aligned. And I'm going to help you see like where not following or not adhering to this idea of getting the core right can cost you money. Let's start off with, okay, I bring a product to market and my packaging branding isn't great, and maybe the product isn't even great. So then how do I get it off shelf? Well, I've got to promote like heck. So in this example, we're looking at returns and allowances. In kind of GAAP accounting, returns and allowances is where our promo cost would be. And so if you see here, as a percentage of net sales, I'm spending 16%, which I would say for most companies who have the core really dialed in, 16% of sales should be that number. And that covers all your promotion, kind of your channel costs, KHE, and everything else. And then let's say you don't follow the core. Well, I don't have the right product at the right time in the right packaging. It doesn't taste good. So people buy it once, they don't buy it again. Well, I got to spend more. I'm spending 50% more in terms of as a percentage of sales, right? To make that happen. So that's a lot more pennies, right? And I live to say every penny counts. So why would I, why would I do that? Why wouldn't I just try to get the packaging right and the branding right, the product right, to make sure I didn't need to do that? So both companies are gross revenue of $1 million. So I'm spending a lot more money to get to that million than I had to spend to get to the million here on the left. And then, so what else happens? So, well, then that lowers my net revenue, right? Because the adjustment to sales is from gross revenue, my gross sales. I adjust for all those promos and my channel costs to get down to net revenue. Well, it's 840 here. It's 760 over here. So I'm already at this, what is it, $80,000 deficit. And now our COGS are higher. So this company has a lot of problems. It's not crazy higher, right? It's $9,000 higher for the same amount of products sold, but it ends up being a much higher percentage of sales. So I have high promos and non-optimized COGS, leading to a whacked gross margin. So my gross margin, instead of being 54%, it ends up being 48%. And by the way, ideally, we want gross profit above 50% of net sales would be truly ideal for a company to have a hope of being profitable in our CPG grocery space. Non-optimized core drives much higher marketing expense. Yeah, so now I got to go hire more influencers because it's not happening automatically. I'll give you a great example in today's presentation of a brand that doesn't have to spend much on marketing because their product is awesome. And so their marketing automatically just attracts people because they want to be associated with the brand. That's what's happening here. Here, I got to go I got to pay so much more to make things happen. Maybe I'm doing more demos. Demos don't go here, they go down here. So I'm having to demo it more, and hopefully those demos are successful. If the product isn't the right product, then it might not even be effective. So what happens is this all flows down into total expenses being 46% of my net revenue versus 56% of net revenue. So it's again 8% of sales difference. And what happens is the high costs are for getting the core and $1 million in sales company. So both of them sold the same amount of product. This one just did it in a much more efficient way than this one that can lead on $1 million company, in this case, to $125,000 differential in profitability. So you see what I mean, right? So in a way, not following the core, this company threw $125,000 into a dumpster and burned it. So again, I'll give you some ideas for each of these steps of the core. So let's get some case studies. This is one of my favorite ones. Ari, they are not a client of ours, but I know Ari well and had lunch with them, and I'm a huge fan of the product. I was working at Jimbo's when some fan of the product, this is what, 4 years ago, approached Jimbo and I at one of the stores and was like, you need to carry this coconut cult. And like, I called the coconut cult. It's like $24 retail. I'm like, who's going to buy this? But it was, here's what the deal was. Coconut cult killed it with the quality and market fit for the product in a way that allowed them to change way more than competitors, charge way more than competitors, and execute low cost social media marketing. So the product worked. It was the right product at the right time. Probiotics 4 years ago were just kind of starting. And this was like, this kind of led the charge in the yogurt space and especially vegan yogurt space. Packaging did great. It's a probiotic coconut yogurt. It's super simple, kind of fun packaging. And they, what I've seen at least, and so I do not know the numbers, but this is the founder of the company. These are TikTok like number of views, right? 717,000. And he just does these posts and people love the product so much that they want to follow him. And so they're not paying any influencer, right? I mean, I know they have some, but for the most part, this is their marketing, right? It's an iPhone and some product and the founder. They've, what do they have here? 260,000 likes, 123,000 followers on Instagram, which is huge. So in my opinion, they had the right product at the right time. They got their branding and packaging right. I don't know anything about their cogs or retails. What I do know is they were able to charge crazy more than anybody else in this same set. Um, the cost per ounce, I imagine, is like 4 to 6 times what a traditional yogurt is, and they killed it. A tidbit of advice. So for I was talking about influencers. So smaller influencers can be helpful in a region or a specific retailer. But being efficient in that kind of the outer core when we need to use marketing. But consider big hitters for national exposure. Bobby Parrish, if you don't follow him, I encourage you to follow him now. He moves needles. I've had multiple brands where Bobby Parrish organically found the product at like a Target or a Sprouts. He posts, and we see a jump in the in the sales. I think YouTube, he has, let me see if I have the number of people following him. He's 5 million subscribers, 2.4 million on Instagram. His TikToks are, generally hundreds of thousands. And this guy, you're going to spend more than working with a small influencer. But if you're, let's say, launching at a Sprouts or a Whole Foods and you need to raise awareness because no one knows about your product yet, like working with someone or a lookalike to Bobby Parrish can be extremely valuable. Or if you're a coconut cult, I just learned this morning, I was like looking at Bobby Parrish's site that he actually invested in Coconut Cult. And so guess who gets lots of call outs by Bobby Parrish, and his sounds like he touches like 10 million people at a pop. So that can be really valuable. Other ideas to consider, by the way, is where you can get a celebrity investor involved. And that could just be not even having them invest much money, right? That can just really raise awareness and be very efficient on the marketing side. But this is about the core, not about marketing. So let's dig into a brand that I've worked with. I'm not going to be revealing anything confidential here, but just this is like in the public domain information that I'm on the board. Been working with this company for 4 years, and just it's been so fun to see the core being executed right. I believe this is one of our earliest generation of packaging. So this packaging is really important, right? You can see how it evolves. The color yellow changes to the orange. The non-GMO is replaced with soy-free. Evolving it forward. The Abbott's Butcher, this like text here was too small anyway, and that kind of slipped away. And we decided, hey, let's put the ingredients, more prominent on the front of the package here, and then you can see a picture of the product. They actually got rid of the window. And so what was happening is like we're going through here and testing. Did this work? Velocity is good, but maybe it could be better if we tried this. Maybe velocity could be better if we tried this. It's like we could have just stayed here, right, and kept on just investing more money as a percentage of gross sales or net sales to drive sales of this. But I would contend that bringing it forward step by step by step ends up keeping us in the core and requiring us to spend less money in this outer circle. This is the new product, the new generation that's just launching nationwide recently. We get rid of the butcher, just Abbott's, bold, like boom. And that's because at the beginning, really, it was more about what the product was, because no one really knew what Abbott's was. But now Abbott's is in Target and Whole Foods and Public stores across America. So we're Abbott's. We're proud of it. And so you see even the image adjusts a little bit less red here. So constantly tweaking. I have so many brands that I work with that come to us, and they're like, hey, I got the perfect product at the perfect price and perfect packaging, and I'm like, you know what? No, no one starts off with that. All we have is a hypothesis, and we keep on trying it till we get this core optimized. So Abbott's Butcher, right product at the right time. And by the way, they never really changed the recipe through all these 4 iterations. The product was right? It was And the retails, those changed. Originally, I think it was $7.99. They went down to $6.99, and now with inflation, it's like $7.99. So just testing different retails out. And then the branding and packaging has been where it's been a lot of evolution through the last 4 years. So hopefully that case study is helpful to you. I have another brand. I won't name the brand. I actually asked ChatGPT to create this fake image of an almond milk. But this is a company I worked with years ago, and just really like love the relentless focus on packaging. They actually own it's actually a plastic bottle. They own the plastic shape. Nobody else can ever have that. The retails were tested at various levels, constantly checking on consumer preferences relative to the product. Is it too thick? Is it too light? And then a relentless focus on COGS. And so really this one I thought did a really good job in everything. So I think this is just, and this brand didn't need to go out and raise crazy millions of dollars to grow into a national company, because they had everything right, especially COGS, right? So at the beginning, if your COGS are way too high and you can never make a profit at a reasonable retail, then you're not going to go anywhere. Okay, so specific aspects of the core. This is actually from a post I did at LinkedIn the other day. But inbound logistics, I found that most people don't think about this. Don't settle for the first freight carrier that you find. Constantly optimize. Even if you got a good rate from an inbound carrier, keep on looking. Again, every penny that we're wasting in COGS is very expensive, and I'll help you see more about that in a second. Raw material sourcing. A lot of the brands we work with are co-manufactured, and they're letting the co-manufacturer source the raw materials. At the beginning, early on, sure, but as you go, I think you'll want to source the raw materials yourself in most cases. That's because your co-manufacturer is earning a margin on the inbound product in most cases. Inventory management, or like just from a cash standpoint, aligning production with actual demand. And then this idea of economies of scale kind of relate to that as well, like reevaluating your batch sizes and order quantities. There's an economic sweet spot, right? For a product that minimizes storage fees and kind of also minimizes your inbound material costs, because the more you buy at a time, the more those costs go down, but then I have to store it somewhere. It's called economic order quantity, EOQ. If you want to learn more about that, let me know. Happy to share the formula for you. It's actually really simple, and you can actually, for any product, determine exactly what to buy. And then tolling. This is actually, I didn't have this in the LinkedIn post, but negotiating tolling is great. Having visibility to different points at which the price will drop. So brackets of volume that would give you lower cost in advance is always really good. That way you just know it's coming. You can build it into your model. And this one here is one that I've tried a couple of times and with success at least once. Is consider making your co-manufacturer your business partner. Why not? I've 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 I love it, because now you're not just a customer of the co-man, you're like their business partner, and they're totally dialed in. I've seen a lot of different ways of approaching this, and so I'm happy to discuss that if you have any questions. So the bad conversion rate. So I was mentioning this idea of like every penny of COGS matter, right? And well, let's say I'm a brand. I'm going to go through this really quick. I know there's a lot of numbers, but I'll make it really easy. So let's say I'm a brand whose COGS are $1, and let's say they're going to increase to $1.20. I want to earn a 50% gross margin. So that means I would be selling it, in this case, this example here, for $2. There's a freight factor to get it to the distributor, so it lands at $2.16. There's a markup between the distributor and the retailer. This is going to a smaller regional retailer. So landed price to the retailer, $2.48. The retailer is earning a 48% margin, which lands them at $4.78. And you can see here, by only going up 20 cents in COGS, all I changed was the 20 cents in COGS because of how it flows through every step to maintain the 50% margin. I have $1 increase almost in my retail price, right? Isn't that crazy? So that a 20-cent increase in COGS causes a 5x, actually, 5x increase in the retail price increase, right? So instead of being 20 cents, it's $1. So, anyone who's not thinking about COGS and trying to optimize it, and maybe waking up every morning and thinking about it every morning, I'm questioning that, because we need to lower this as much as we possibly can, because otherwise either we're taking it in the margin or we're taking it in the sell price. Ensuring best packaging and branding, we have an amazing packaging and branding company we work with. Um, I'll have Sasha post his information in the chat, but it's they're Steve Beckman and his team do awesome. I think this is actually his quote. This idea that you have 3 seconds for someone to look at something at shelf and be able to determine, can I see it? Do I know what it is? Why should I buy it? And it has to be done in like a few seconds. So there's a lot of heavy lifting. This is where D2C brands often struggle coming into retail is like, wow, they had this whole page to tell the story. Well, now you only have as a front of a package, right? and it has to do all the lifting. So good luck on that. So we really recommend testing packaging hypotheses at farmers markets, local friendly retailers, regional chains, in-store demonstrations, maybe where you're there yourself, focus groups. And Steve actually has, this is an example of one where he does kind of these virtual focus groups. And I know you like that term focus groups, but I think other people understand that. And they actually bring up, like, he'll design a package, look at the original packaging and the new packaging and put it up against the same competitors in the set and determine like which ones, in this case, a natural consumer shops at Sprouts, which one would they choose? And this is fun on a couple of levels. Number one is it helps me get my packaging right, but it also, for an emerging brand that does not have any data, this allows me to have some data. Like, hey, we actually did a virtual set Sprouts. Here's the product on there. They actually chose ours 84% of the time, right? So it's like that's extremely powerful where I don't have spins data, for example, or KHE data to support what I'm doing. So um, again, if you want a connection with Steve and Designology, his team, I'd love to connect you guys. He's worked with a number of our brands and has created a lot of great packaging that's totally core aligned. The pricing case study. So this is one I get asked about a lot. Like, how do I determine the SRP? Certainly, at a very high level, I could look at spins data. I could see what competitors who are growing in the space are doing. I could look at shelf's good. I can see where competitors are there, but without the spins data, for example, I just don't know if it's actually selling at that price. I know it is that price. So I'd like to look at shelves and at spins data to know where retails are. And then as a brand, like, how do I determine over time? Like, maybe my attributes are a little different. I want to try to maximize my margin. What could my maximum retail be on shelf? So in this case, we have a fictional company, the beautiful packaging designed by ChatGPT. We have Pure Strength's goal. So Pure Strength is our company. They want to be at a $299 retail today. Similar bars in the set sell for $329 and $379. So definitely the lower end of the price point, but similar attributes. So there could be opportunity here for margin. The retailer gross margin in this case is 45%. The distributor markup is 9%. And then the freight factor to distributor is 8%. And their COGS are 75 cents a bar. So let's play around with this. I really enjoyed putting this together. So generally velocity increases as retail drops. Okay, yeah. So you can see like the slope of this kind of goes down at a nice even approach from $2 to about $2.99. And then once I hit $3 and go up and go higher, you can see the kind of the slope kind of goes at a steeper slope, right? So there's above a certain retail, I start losing a lot of demand for my product, right? So I want to be aware of that. And then I think about, okay, well, where do I optimize retailer revenue? So if I think, so this is per store per week on one SKU, and we find that 299 maximizes the revenue. The high point of retailer revenue, right, which is going to be about $24 per week per SKU per store, is right here. That's where they want to be if they're aware. Most retailers don't have full clarity in exactly where they want to be, so that opens up an opportunity. So gross margin dollars to our company. So Pure Strength, I want to make sure that I am staying on shelf. I'm making that category manager happy. I'm getting it into people's mouths, right? And then I'm also maximizing my margin. So when I take when I go and multiply everything out that we said on that first slide of this case study, I can see that my margin dollars per week per store, at $2 are very low because that meant I had to charge a very low price in a distribution, but they maximize at to $6, $6 a week per store when I'm at $379 retail. So knowing this information, well, I think I kind of want to be at 379 if I can. If that velocity makes the retailer happy and I'm like doing well with everybody else in my cohort in the set, That's the optimum price for me. So the retailer's happy, so $2.99. Our margin is maximized at $3.79. So again, as long as our velocity is acceptable, and because some competitors sell at $3.79 already, I would test $3.79. If the retail is too high, we can always come down, or we can use that extra margin that we're earning to be able to do more in-store demonstrations or more promotions or more marketing or whatever we want to do. But I in this case, I like starting off at a higher retail and then bring it down as we go. So that was pretty quick going through it, but I had a lot of fun putting this together because I was like, hey, you really can see that sometimes the retailer may have a different interest than the brand, and that's okay. Let's see here. So with that, I will pause. We finished in exactly 30 minutes, which was the goal, and leave space for your questions.
Good job, Luke. Finish right on time, and I love all the case studies. And I know you worked a lot and in the middle of the night on building this deck. So we have some questions. Carolyn earlier, she mentioned that she would love more info on making a comment a business partner. Maybe look if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah. So Carolyn, thank you, and I love your brand. I in our case, the cases where I've tried it, I literally just went to the co-man. I realized that the co-man really believed in what we were doing, and just asked them. And in the case that was successful, I just asked if they could contribute product, which was really that was it. So that became their investment. I sent them a forecast of what I thought that investment would look like, and then gave them a time frame for when they could expect a return of that investment. So they didn't. I didn't want any money. I just wanted them to produce product for me, and in exchange for ownership. And so that, again, being able to have that co-manufacturer aligned with you is huge. It's not always something that's possible, but why not ask?
Thank you, Luke. Christine is asking, how much control do we have over what the retailer prices the product at? We can suggest an SRP, but what else can we do about it?
Yeah, this is really, really important, this question. And so much comes up for me. So number one is you do not control what a retailer ultimately does. You can certainly influence it to a great degree. Once and working with the right people in the industry who understand the goal margins for that specific category at that specific store can help you work backward on where you need to land it price wise to the distributor, that based on, freight to get to the distributor plus the markup, I know it'll land to the retailer, and then all I need to do is then calculate their margin to get to that SRP. Does it mean they'll follow it? No, it does not mean they'll follow it. You can share data to say, hey, and I think your product is in the $24.99 area, Kristen, if I'm not wrong. You can share that, hey, when we go above $25, velocity drops by 20%, right, on average. So that would be an opportunity for you to just share with the retailer, hey, I think our ideal price point is this, and here's why, based off of experiences that we've had in the past. In some cases, too, if you want to achieve a retail, and Sprouts is a great example where they will put an everyday EDLP tag. If they want to price you at $27, you want to be $24.99, then you can go to them and say, hey, what do you need for an EDLP allowance to kind of bring it down to that goal price that I have? And Sprouts will tell you that number. And if you're willing to fund it, you can really kind of control your velocities. It can just add up to be a lot of money. And one last thought before anyone just goes and does that. Ideally, that's not being done as an ongoing MCB from your distributor to your retailer. You're doing it as a scan back. The scan back can flow back through the distributor, but you do not want to have it as an MCB, as an ongoing approach for an EDLP. And we can get into that later if you have any questions.
Thank you, Luke. Kristen, if you have any other follow-up questions, or anyone else, if you want to directly ask questions, you can also just raise the hand and we can bring you on the screen. Another question we got from Dan. Will retailers and distributors work with different margins for higher valued products?
Yeah, good question. And I would say it's not consistent. So if I think about a category manager in most grocery stores today, they are bonused or held highly accountable to what's called comp growth. So dollar growth in the category year over year, and hitting a gross margin percentage. What's interesting is that many, if not most retailers today, they're not thinking about the margin dollars as much as they're thinking about the margin percent, right? And a category manager's job is kind of piece together this puzzle of like maximizing comp sales growth with margin. And so in some cases, if you could show, hey, I'll drive comp sales growth because of the high dollar amount and bring down your margin a little bit, but then that category manager's other products that are at a higher margin to offset it, that's how it can work. Distributors working on lower markups is difficult. KeHE and Unify, for example, generally negotiate contracts maybe by department in the store. They're holistic for the whole store, but they be different markups by department. And I don't usually see them tearing down in the markup rate depending on the cost. I know, like I used to own a distribution company, and what we would do is go like to like I said, like a goal maximum dollars per unit or per case we'd want to earn, but that would help bring down the overall margin we're applying, but we'd still earn a lot of dollars, right? And that's only something I've ever seen with more like independents and regionals in the distribution space.
Thank you, Luke. Chris, comment, Steve gave out some advice in one of your master classes. Yeah, we did one with Steve last year, which was really great. I changed my packaging. It made it so much better. Thank you for that. Still have a long way, but just want to tell you guys how much I continue to appreciate it. Thank you so much, Chris. And thank you so much, Steve, as well. I see that you're here. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for,
Lindsay. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for supporting our community, Steve. You've done a great job.
Yeah, Lindsay is asking, how do you know what a typical margin is in your department in the store, for example, frozen?
I love the question, right? And so how do we know? And you really don't. Like even for me, I won't know the exact margins, but we have really good ideas because we're able to because companies like mine, we work across a lot of brands that we're already presenting into the retailers. We know where the retails end up. We generally know the markup from the distributor to the retailer. Let me just kind of do the math to figure out those margins. In most departments in our store, at like a larger retailer, we're generally figuring between 40 and 43% is maybe 38 to 43% would be a decent range to use. You will find that smaller retailers who have less good programs with Unify and KeHE will have lower margins simply because they need to be competitive and they just don't have the buying power. So they have to compress their margins in that case. So you also could ask the category manager, could you give me a margin range that you're aiming for? Or you could give them your first receiver price, like what you're charging KeHE for the product, and ask them if they could tell you approximately what the SRP would need to be to make it work for them.
Yeah, I find that most of the retailers we work with will share this information. What's their goal margin? Awesome. I don't see any other questions here right now. We still have enough time, so if you have anything else that you want to ask, Luke. I have a question. Everybody right now is talking about sustainable CPG, sustainable growth, and you've been dealing with right now a lot of investors lately. How does the current investment environment look like, and how important is it to be sustainable, and what does it mean even to be sustainable?
Yeah, it really depends. So first off, on capital raising today, it used to be very democratized. It didn't matter kind of where you were, you could raise money. And right now, especially over the last year and 6 months, 18 months, really you had to check every box. You had to, be an amazing leader, ideally with some track record. You have, and this is like for venture capital money, right? And you have to have the velocity story validated on some level, your packaging, like really the core. If you think about it, the core has to be solid. And so if your intention is to raise capital, I think this core model that we shared today is a great place to start. I do think that there's a tremendous amount of capital available. That capital is just much more careful about where it's being spent. There has to be some validation points. Now we call them core validation points for them to want to invest. there's different stages too, right? There's pre-seed, seed, you know, there's A minuses, A plus phrases, B, C's, D's. You know, my strong recommendation, because I've seen so many companies go out of business in the last 18 months. Good companies, good leaders, right? Is to really get this core right, run a business that ideally is profitable, or has hope to be profitable soon, and you know, you don't have to depend on money coming in at any given point. I've heard of too many brands who've been down the road, only to have the money not show up and then to be dead, because cash is the lifeblood of a company. So just some thoughts there. You know, if I was to grow a company today and I wanted to get the attention of venture capital, I would be very focused, very focused on owning like a small region, even a good sized city. Like I live here in San Diego, like own San Diego, maximize velocity here. Like really, it's about going deep with the stores you have, not going wide at the beginning. Proving out the case study, learning, iterating your packaging, getting the right retail, continuing to improve your COGS, and then be able to go to a investor and ask them for money at that point. Would be my suggestion.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Luke. I'm gonna bring up, I'll share the screen, and if you can talk a little bit more about how we work with brands. If anybody would be interested in
Sure.
getting
Yeah.
help. And
Thank you, Sasha. I do about 2 or 3 of these 3-hour strategic deep dives every week right now. And I find they create a lot of value. We start off usually 15 minutes on purpose, mission, core value, because that's the filter through which everything else needs to be done and seen. And then we do a SWOT analysis. We're thinking about the strengths and weaknesses of the team, of the product, the packaging, really, you know, really high level, like what are the strengths that we need to play to? What are the weaknesses we need to ameliorate? We think about opportunities and threats, which is opportunities in the market for growth. Well, hopefully there are some. What are we doing? And then threats are things that we need to be aware of. Could be capital markets, could be a recall at a co-manufacturer. And then we develop what we call OKRs. And in most big companies, at least, they try to sandbag their numbers. And OKRs were developed originally at Intel and Google, and are this idea that let's set goals that really move us, like to think outside the box. Ideally, they're only 70 to 80% of the time achievable. But even if I don't achieve them, I really have moved the needle in a big way. And we come up with usually 2 to 3, maybe 4 of those with specific key results, who's doing what next and by when. And it's all kind of driven by that SWOT analysis, and also back to the purpose, core values and mission. So I find these extremely valuable. I love doing them. I've done dozens and dozens in the last year at least, and it's been very rewarding. So definitely welcome anyone that wants to talk more about that.
Thank you, Luke. Yes, and this 3-hour deep dive, it could be either in person or over Zoom. Originally, the price was 2,500. We are planning to raise it to 3,000, but for anyone who is attending this masterclass, we'll keep the original price for 2,500. So if you're interested, feel free to message to look that about at vdriven.com.
Yep. And the good nice thing about that too is that if you do decide to work with us on sales, we apply that to the first month. So it's kind of an investment.
Okay. Miguel Gama, he has a comment for margins. I engage with international distributors. I ask directly the distributor, what is your target for margins for modern and traditional channels? And I also ask for their supermarket clients and co-distribution, and even their last chain distribution to the point of end selling. I check prices for the competition. I need to understand the full channel margin structure.
Beautiful. Thank you. Miguel and I had breakfast this morning. It was great to see you. And yeah, I love those. Those are great points. I support them 100%.
Okay. Awesome. So we've got still a couple more minutes. I don't see, Chris is asking, okay, he's interested how much was the deep dive. So as I said, for registrants, attendees of the masterclass, it's 2,500. Let me see. Okay, we've got another announcement that we can share with you guys. At Vdriven, we are working with Sprouts Farmers Market on a pitch slam for emerging brands that have a new innovative product that have not been really on the market yet or have been in very limited retailers, something new on the market. And applications are open until this Friday. So if you have a product and are interested in working with Sprouts, meeting with the Sprouts forager team, presenting your brand to them, you can apply, and I'm gonna post the link to apply in the chat box. You can also read more information about the pitch slam on in the link. There's also application. The pitch slam will be on April 25th via Zoom. Again, presenting to the Sprouts, and also it's not about just pitch, but you would be working with Luke and also Chris from our team, who on getting ready on how to properly pitch, prepare your deck, and also we would help you with setting up distribution once you are selected from Sprouts to get into the innovation center.
That's it. And this is part, I want to thank Sasha for doing all the work to get this off the ground. We spent months working with Sprouts on this program and really wanted to create another opportunity for emerging brands to have a space to present to Sprouts and hopefully find a future there on their shelves. So I look forward to everybody submitting and reviewing submissions.
Awesome. Okay, well, I think I don't see any other questions, so I'm gonna post in the chat box again also Luke's email and LinkedIn where you can connect with him if you would like to discuss any challenges you have, interested in the deep dive, or just say hi. Looks like to chat with people. Ask him any question. Yeah, so thank you so much today. Look, do you have any last words?
No, we're just
share?
grateful to everybody, and I hope this information was valuable for you. I spent a decent amount of time trying to make this something that people can understand. Even for me, it's like I can lose focus sometimes on what really matters, and I always come back. Every time I come back to like the core is where it's at. So grateful for you, everybody attending today. Thank you for your support and being a part of our community.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of your week.